Hello guys, hello everyone. I hope you are doing great. I'm excellent. Today we are going to talk about Riverpod and how to use it with clean architecture. For this, we are going to build our travel application, which will look like this with three main functionalities. The first one will be my trips. The user can view the list of all the trips he wants. So display a list of user trips. The second will be to add trips. So the user can add picture, description, date, or set location. And the third one, he will be able to view the places he has already visited on maps. So to create this application, we will use Riverpod for state management and also Hive for data storage and all of that with clean architecture. I hope you are ready for this. If yes, let's do it. We've reached 1K members in our Telegram communities with such amazing developers. Don't forget to join us and enjoy learning new things. We're going to add dependencies we will need for this project, but before that I just create an empty Flutter project so we can basically just start from scratch. And yeah, let's add the dependencies we will need for this project. So in your pubspec.yml, we are going to add Hive and Hive Flutter for data storage, Riverpod for state management, and also the last one to convert data time so we can have a good format for our date, for example. And all of these dependencies, if you want to just to copy paste them directly, you can just find the link in our description and you will find the GitHub link. So yeah, now let's just run pub-get to make sure everything is good. And if yes, we are going to talk about our project structure. Yeah, so where is it? I came across for this image that I believe it will be beneficial for our explanation and to describe the architecture we are going to use for our project. So before we delve into the creation file within my editor, let's just begin by explaining the structure we are going to use. So in our case, we are going to have, I'm going to create like feature folder, and inside feature folder, I'm going to add trip folder. But for example, if you are building your own app and you want to add several folder, you can. For example, if you have, I don't know, like food feature, so you can add it and the structure are going to be the same. But yeah, let's begin by structuring our project. So we are going to have three principal domains. So the first one, I will call it like domain layer and data layer, and the last one will be presentation layer. So the domain layer, this layer will house all the core logic. So the code will be purely write in Dart and not Flutter, by ensuring it doesn't communicate directly with the presentation. You know, like we want this domain to be really separated from our presentation layer so we can minimize potential errors. Yeah, and we are going to have entities, repository, and use case inside this layer, but I will explain it a bit later during the tutorial. We also have data layers, and data layer is where we interface with data source or API service or any kind of external service you are going to use. But in our scenario, we will use Hive for local storage, for example. But however, I will also guide you to if you want to integrate with a remote API service. So yeah, and the last one is the presentation layer. This is dedicated to our user interface component. So I hope you understand a bit clear what I want to say, but let's just delve in the code. Then we are going to create those files directly. Yeah. Let's create those files and start writing our first line of code. But we are going to create feature folder first, and inside feature folder we are going to have our first feature, which will be trip. Inside trip we are going to have the domain layer, then data folder, and we will also have presentation layer. Yeah, of course we will have a core feature later to add in, for example, to catch up errors and some kind of folder we can create also. But now let's just focus on these three. And inside domain layer, we are going to have entities. So repository, and the last one will be our use cases. Yeah, and then inside data folder, we are going to have models, also data sources, and then yeah, repositories. And in presentation layer, of course, we are going to have a provider. In our case, our provider will be done with Riverpod, but if you are using blog, for example, or another state management, you can just add it directly in your provider folder. We will also have widgets if you want to customize some widgets. It will be there, and the last one will be pages. So yeah, great. And now we have our main folder, which we just have created, and now we are going to couple on clean architecture with DDD, and DDD main domain driver design, which will help us to begin with the domain layer. But the small difference between, or the difference between clean architecture and DDD, clean architecture, like Uncle Bob like to say, is the goal is to create a system that is independent from UI, database, and other external framework. And DDD is just strategic approach to software design and development. So we will use this to just begin with our domain logic. Yeah, we are going to start with the domain layer because, like I used to say, we are going to use DDD. So we are going to start first of all with entities. For the inside entities folder, we are going to create trip.dat. And why? Because here is I'm going to create this file and write how we would like our structure to be. For example, if you got an API, we can just create a class, trip class based on your API response. But in our case, we are going to define it ourselves because we are not using like API, you know. So our trip will have a title, so I will just add title like this. We are going to have also a list of string, and a list of string will be for our picture. So we can just write picture there, or photo if you want. And yeah, I will write photos. And yeah, we will also have a description, but a description will just be a string description. Also have a date with, and the last one will be location. For location, you can use a tuple, some kind of tuple, you know, like or enum if you want to use latitude and longitude, so it will really depend, but let's just use a string format for now. And yeah, all of these will be wrapped in a constructor directly, so I can generate it. Yeah, so in entity, like I used to say, in our domain, we are going to just have the logic, so we won't use from JSON part for parsing, so we will just parsing our data later in the model inside data layers, so here. So yeah, now let's continue with our repository. We are going to create a repository. So for example, I can just call this trip repository, and inside our repository, so yeah, inside our repository, it is going to be just an abstract class, so it will define the main functionalities we want to have inside our application, for example. So we are going to have this, so we will have get trips function, for example, which will help us to have to get all the trips that user have, and also add trips. The user can also add the trips, and the last one will be to delete trips if user want to just, but if you want, you can just add update function, so as you want, and based on your own project, yeah, you can complete this. Add trips will be just a void, so yes, we are going to have a void, and also it will be the same with delete trips, and get trips can return us, so we are going to have just it will return us a list of trips that we have just created. And yeah, I think we got something here in repository. So in the domain layer, repository is just an abstract class which will define the main functionality we want to use. The last one will be with use case, and in use case we are going to have to create all the use case we just defined in our repository and try just to implement it. So let's just begin with get trips, for example. So yes, and inside get trips we are going to have, it will be like just a class which will return us all the trips. So there is some function we call in that it is called function, and this function by default, when we will call later in our code, for example, when we instantiate get trips, it will call this function directly, so it will execute it. But inside this function we are going to just initialize our repository. So yes, and inside we are going to just call get trips, and it will return get trips. So yeah, we will have this, for example. So just ask me to create a constructor, so we are going to create a constructor, and this one also will return us trips. So we got an error. Yes, he said yes, we just need to add return, so because it is a feature. And yeah, so this one will return us all the trips that user will have inside this application. So now we can just add trips and delete trips also. So let's just create a file called add trips, add trip, and it will, I will just copy this logic, and I will modify. Let's just rename this and call it add trip, and let's import our repository and also our entities, and here we are going to call add trips. And this one say, yeah, we just need to return a void, because if you came here in the repository, they say, yeah, it is not this, we just need to return a void. So let's just add void here and remove our entities. So we are going to do the same with delete trips. So let's just copy this one, paste it, and rename. Delete, make our import and call delete trip, and this one will delete will delete. So we have just created three use case, but in add trips, for example, we can say that in our repository we are going to add trips, but we didn't add any parameter. So if you want to add trips, of course you can just call an empty function. You need to pass a parameter trip, and then later just call it so they can add in our database or just add a trip. So here inside our repository we are going to define a parameter called trips. So user are going, and it is almost the same. If user want to delete a specific trips, he need to pass the trip index, and we will find it directly in our trip list. So now we make some errors. They say we need to pass trip parameter. So yeah, there I will just call directly trips and trips, and there we just need to import this one, and it will be almost the same with the difference. We got here index and pass index in parameter. So yeah, now we have done with all the domain logic. We are going to deal with data layers, and then later we are going to finish with the presentation layer. Yeah, let's continue. We are going in our data layers, but we are going to create our first model. So we will create trip model, and our model are going to be the implementation of the entities we just got here in our domain layer. And our model are going to provide us a structure, and it will be the conversion between our entities and the model. So yeah, let's just create our file trip model, and these are going to be just a class called trips model. I mean, in most of case we can just extend this directly with our trip class, which is in our domain layer, but in our case today we are going to try to just respect the clean architecture code and then just separate everything in case to avoid some error later. I mean, if your app is just a small or medium app, you can just extend it directly, but in some case it will be preferable to just split them into parts. But yeah, we are going to have, it will be the same, like title. I will just do this. So I try to Yes. Going to create this, and then now I can just use Hive to create Hive type. For those who didn't watch our tutorial on Hive, you will find in the description also the link to Hive tutorial, and yeah, you will understand how to set up. But we're just going to do this. Now we are going to add, and this one I will call it trip model.g.dart, and I'm going to generate this file directly with a command in my terminal, just letter. Yes, but first of all, let's just add, we are going to add two functions. So the first one will be trip model from entities, I will just do it like this. So these are going to convert from entities to model, so we will use it later in our repository and also in our presentation layer. So now we got some error, it is normal. We need to import trips and just call trips.title. Yeah, it will be almost the same. So this one will help us to make the conversion from entities to model. Yeah, and we are going to have also in the other direction, so we need to convert also from the model to entity. So for this one we will have trip parameter to entities, and this one will help us just to make the conversion. Yes, fine. Now we just have this line, which is right, but we are going to just add some command in our terminal. So we are going to pass the command. So let's just run the command, and it will generate our file directly if everything is good. Yeah, now we can see that it generates directly Hive files, and yeah, so now this line is green. Yeah, so we have done with model, our model, and it is almost the same. If you are not using Hive, for example, and you just have your own API, you just need to define all the, you can just extend directly the trip or your entity class, or just define all of the fields you want to use, and yeah, just make the conversion there. So if you doesn't want to use JSON, I don't know, in your project later, you can also change the structure just here, so it will be easy. So yeah, now we are going through our data source, but in this file, these are going to handle the interaction with Hive. If we were working with remote data, for example, it will be the place where the API will be called. So let's just create trip local data source, for example. Yeah. Yes. So in this, we are going to initialize our class. And we are going to have three main functionality there. Like we used to say, we are going to have get trips, add trips, and delete trips. So if you were using API, this place will be called shortly trip remote data sources, and it will make an API call with DO or HTTP directly on our API. But in our case, we are going just to use Hive. So yeah, let's just create function get trips. I just want so we are going to import our model. So our trips are going to return us a list of all the trips we got inside our box. But before that, we are going, let's just comment this line first and let's initialize our box. So this one, so with get trips, we are going to return all the data inside our box. So let's just call trip box. For those who want to understand, box is with Hive, box is just a content which will return you the all the data. Is the place where your data is has been stored. So yeah, let's just return the list directly here. So we will also have add trips. So if we want to add new trips, so just need cut out model just here, and we will have, we got the function add. We can use the function put if, for example, we just have a specific ID and you want to add your ID and add the value. But in our case, we are going to let Hive generate the ID directly. So we are going to just use add to add a new trip. So yeah. And the last one will be to delete trip. And to delete trip, we are going to need just an index. I'm going to call delete and pass the index of the trip we want to delete. So yeah, we have just finished with our data sources, and now we are going to implement our repository by using data source. So we are going to create trip repository implement. Yes. So for this, we are just going to use the repository inside our domain layer and just extend our repository implementation. I want to add that the difference between data repository and data source is in data source we are going to fetch our data, and in the, for example, if you were using an API, we can mix both trip local data source and trip remote data source and just combine both of them in our repository directly to return the structure we want. But in our case, we just got this one, so we are just going to create new class called trip repository and extend this with trip repository. So yeah, he generates a file directly. So yes, now to use this one, we are just going to use trip local sources and just call it local data source, and going to create a constructor. So yeah, in add trips, for example, we just need to define a model. And if you remember, in our model classes, we just create, we just add two main functions. So we are just going to use the first one. So trip model from entities, but we need to import this one. So these are going to convert our entities to the model, and then later we can just call the data source and call the function add trips and just add trip model inside this one. So the body might complex normally because my so we got an error here, and what this error saying is we need to add sync function, because let just me remove this. Yeah, they want us to convert to finish the conversion before adding this model in our storage. So we just need to add a sync keyword. Yeah, let's just continue with delete trips. It will also be the same, but we are going to just call local data source delete and pass the index, and this one also are going to be asynchronous, and the last one will be get trips. And for get trips, we are going to trips model. I'm going to call our trips. And here we can just return. And now we see some error, so we need to convert this to a list of entities. So we are going to create a list of entities. Let's call it res, for example. So we are going to map this one. And call model. And we are just going to return a value list can be returned from the method get trace because it has a return objectives. Yeah, okay. So this one mean that we need to catch up on error if, for example, we got some error in our model, for example. So we are going to try to just let me just think a bit. Yeah, in our repository, we are going to have our repository there. And this one, we are going to not just return trips, but we need to return a list of trips. Yes. So feature list of trips, and that is normal. We just so now we got new error and this one is also normal because we need to return a list and not just one trips. So here, so we have done with our repository. Now we can continue with the presentation layer. Let's continue. Now we are going to delve into the presentation layer, and we are going to start by initialize the provider so we can have access to it in all the app. So before that, let's just create trip provider in our file. So we are going to have this one, and in trip provider we are going to start with by creating we are going to use like some kind of injection dependency injection, but we are going to start with our different use case. So for example, let's just create add trips provider, and for this one we are going to use add trips, yeah, for example. And this one we are going to add just the parameter ref. Let's import provider. Oh, okay, that is because he make some error there. No, let just import provider and import our add trip use case sys. And yeah, in this one we are going to just call our repository, because this one in its constructor take repository, so you need to declare a repository, but to initialize this we are going to create repository provider too. Of course we didn't have it yet, but we will just add it later, and then return add trip with repository, so they can just call our use case directly. And we are going to just do the same with all our use case. So get trips, for example, and get trips. We also have get trips here, and it will return get trips, and we will have the last one, which will be delete trip provider, and let's just call delete trip. I don't know if you call it like this. Yeah, so let. And yeah, now we can see that we got an error and say undefined name trip provider repository. But if you just go directly on our trip repository, let's just find here our trip repository. We are going to see that our trip repository also depend on some trip local data source, but let's just create our trip repository too, and this one is going to be our trip repository, but we are going to do it like this. But this one, it needs local data storage, so in case to avoid to call it every time, we are just because it's a throw, try adding a specific one name to, yeah, so we need to create trip, because we need trip local data source provider, trip local data source provider, and this one we also need to create it let's just create, but this one need a parameter which will be box trip model. So yeah, let's just create trip box, and in our case we are going to use hive.box, and yeah, here we can just pass the name of our box and import Hive, Flutter, and also our model. And here we are going to pass this. Say trip repository can be assigned. Yes, that is normal because we just missed to add trip local data sources here. Yes. Now we have initialized all the provider for our use case. Now we are going to create trip list notifier provider, which will help us to manage fetching trips from the repository. So let's just create it now. And we are going to use state notifier provider, and this one let's just add some parameter because we need to specify that we are going to return list notifier, and this one will return us a list of trips. So yeah, basically we are going to so now we got this, we just need to return our call now. Look like we got an error. Yeah, it is just because we are trying to use this one. Now we are going to create the class list trip list notifier and extend this class with state notifier. and instead we return a list of trip basically. Yeah, that is normal. We just need to create a constructor in but so let's just delete this constructor and create it. Yeah, no. Yes. Now we are going to add our last function. So we are going to add load trips, which will load trips from the repository directly, and also the same with add new trips and remove. Let's just begin with the most simple, add new trip. And we are going to just call this one. I'm also going to have to remove some trip we are going to use in index, as we used to say. And yeah, and these are going to have a parameter which will be trip height here, because we just need to pass a parameter indexed here. And it is almost the same with trip. When we try to call add trips, we just need to pass also by calling the function add trips directly here, we need to pass the parameter trips. It is almost the same by, we can just like doing this, for example, like delete trips.call, but those are also the same with just calling directly the variable add trips by passing the good parameters. So we are going to do the last one, which will be load trips. And with load trips, we are going to have async function. We just need to initialize. We can try to call get trips like this, so they will return us like a list of trips directly. So yeah, I think we just need to add feature in cases, because we are using asynchronous function just right now, and we can just add them here. So we have just finished with our trip repository, and now we can just delve in presentation layer, and yeah, we are going to run our app for the first time since we just beginning. But the good way to do this is to use TDD. like test domain paragraph, and it will help you to just test directly all the stuff we are just doing right now, and to make sure like everything is good when we are just building your app. But yeah, let's just continue with the presentation layer and see what we are going to. Our main dot, so in our main dot, it is like default file when you just create a new Flutter project. So I'm going to delete those unnecessary line, and yeah, I will just let's say that we are going to, and let's call it our app, and then let's my home page. Yeah, we don't have this screen again, but we are going to create new one which we will call main screen. And before just create our main screen, we are going to add some line. For example, widget Flutter pane sure, and here we are going to initialize Hive and open our box. For those who doesn't understand why I mean open our box, here for example in our provider we say hive.box, but there is some difference between hive.box and hive.openbox, for example. And the difference between hive.box is hive.box just are going to open some an existing box who has already been existed, and if your box are not being existent, your app are just going to be crashed. So we just need to initialize or to create a box before calling all of your provider. And this command which I'm going to just write, like hive.openbox, mean that if I don't have an existent box, please just create some box which we will call trips, and yeah, we can just use this box in your application later. So we are going to just import Hive with Hive Flutter, and before that we also are going to use hive.init Flutter, and this line are just going to say to Hive that, hey, please, I ask you to just save all the information I want in some specific path in my device. So it means like you are not going to lose your information if you just restart your app, for example. And it is also important to add register adapter, so you can just declare our model adapter, and this model adapter is this file which has been generated when we just run our command the first time. So yeah, and the last one will just be to wrap my app with provider scope, and this component is provided by Riverpod, so it can help us to have access to all the information and all the function we just have initialized in our provider file during the application. For example, if you want to add some new trips, or just remove it or load for example, we are going to have access to all these functions directly in the tree of our app. So yeah, let's just create our main screen pages in, yeah, we are going to call it like main screen the dart. And I create stateless and call it main screen first. But because we are going to use provider, so we need to use consumer widget. Yes. And we are just going to material. Then here we can import main. This one to have this, so it will help us with this parameter ref. We are going to have access to all the function that is provided by provider. So yeah, and basically we are just going to create our bottom navigation, because we are going to have a bottom navigation for our three main folder. So let's just create a scaffold there, and in body so we need to have also a controller. We are going to have 3 pages, 1, 2, 3, for example. And here, just after your body, we can just have bottom navigation. And this, we are going okay, so we just need to have bottom navigation bar. Okay. So each of them we each item will have its icons and label. So let's just call it my trips, and let's just duplicate this line and trips, and of course can have so we will need to, when we will click on some items, it will need to change the page. So to doing this, we are going first of all to initialize our controller, and yeah, let just think we can just remove this for now and declare So we are going to wrap all of this in to have so inside our builder, because builder take 3 parameter: context, page index, and also the child. So we have this, the child, and then we will just return. Yes, so with this code, if we run this code, we will have just bottom navigation page. So let's just run this and make sure that everything is going well. I've just run our project, and we can see that we got 3 different items. Now let's just add we are going to add some listener or our page controller in order to just switch when user try to change the page is on. So we are going just to change the value of our current page by doing this, because these are going to return us a double. So yeah, we just need to round it in case they became yeah. So if I do this, I will add just some upper. So I can say the number is changing. So we just need to verify if everything is great. And now we are going also to disable this justice banner by doing the default putting in force. And now we got this, so we are just going to add to customize our app bar. So let's I will just start by adding some columns. So yeah, let's just have this. I'm going to add a style inside. Okay. That's great. Now let's just copy paste this one, and we can just say traveling today. So nice. Let's just add some background color. Let's just put white, so we can just have this, and elevation to 0. And if you want to increase, yeah, we can basically just do this. But now we want to display, when we click on some specific item, we want the color to change. So we are going just to add and to set the page index. And for example, if you are on the tree, so yeah, it will change directly on the good page. So yeah, we are done. Now we are going to just we are going to create new screen for which we display our trips screen. So yeah, let's just create my trip screen, for example. And this one, we just got an error, but yeah, we are going to create my trip screen, and my trip screen basically are just going to display a list view builder. So it will be just a list which will be displaying. So let's just add term. I'm going to do the same. And in this one, I'm going to just call list view builder, because we are going to have to display a list. So let's just call it trip list. So these are going to be the list when you get from trip notify provider. And we are using ref.watch and not def.read, because def.watch, as its name means, it will continuously watch, and if it will act like stream, and if we just have some new update or new information, it will just rebuild our screen directly. So yeah, let's just trip list length, and we are going to add yes. Okay, now we are going to display are going to display the title of each items. So before that, I'm just going to import this. So it's normal if I'm trying to print this here. We are going to just have empty list, so we can't display anything here, and that is I say it is normal. We didn't add anything yet. So in order to be able to just add something in our list, let's just create add screen add trip screen first, and then we will come back to display our list of travel as you want. So yeah, let's just add the fourth value first. Title, description, location, picture. So we are just going yeah, okay, that's great. So we are just going to return a form. Let's just add some placeholder. Yeah, let's just duplicate the line and just the same. Okay, so now I'm going to let just display this. Okay, so we can just see directly what, and this is our default value. In our case, we are going to just add one picture layer, but if you want, you can just change this screen dynamically. We are going to add in our description the link of our repository, so for those who want to just put a star or just clone the project, or if you want to contribute, yeah, feel free to add whatever you want. And yeah, let's continue by just adding on press. We will have like a button, and we just say add trips, you know. Okay, so here we are going to just we got our list picture here, and we are going to just add a network URL. So you know, probably we are going to suppose that we had already saved your picture, so let's just add an URL image, you know. So yeah, and now I'm going to make sure everything is good. If yes, let's just create for date. We are going to just use date at that time, but now for location and now if everything is good, we just are going to call our notifier and add our new trip. Yeah, so let's just add a new trip here. So if we add new trip here, and then let's make the test. But to do that, let's just change our default variable and put, for example, and here we are going to put Paris, and I got some tests where, so by default we are going to put this, and if we click on add trips, yeah, okay, yeah, we need in our main screen to load the so we can load our okay. Now he's creating an empty project. So let's call these two here. So if we add a new one, let's just make sure we are going new trips. Okay, we got new instance of trips. Okay. So now let's just make sure that our provider are going to. Now we need to see. Let's just okay, we can see that it display a list, but yeah, of course we need to return this yes, so okay, then that is perfect. We just need to just following DDD and under errors. We are going just to modify a little load trip function, which will be in there. So we are just going to let a void as we had to do, and let's just make our, yeah, we can just call it like trips of failure. And we are going to return let's just write it as we want. So if you got error, you are just going to return an empty case, and if not, we are going yeah, then they say that is pretty normal. So we are just going in get trips to make like small changes. So in get trips we got, because we just got some error there, we are just going to return an error and also list of trip. So this is normal, just because we just also have failure which came. So we are just going to create a core file. Let's just create core, and inside this one we are going to have errors, and yeah, let's just create failure, and inside failure we are just going to create an abstract class called failure. Let's define some string message. I'm going to have our constructor so this one I'm just going to throw an error if you have one. Yeah, and there we can just import our failure directly. And here, now basically in our implementation tool, we are going just to change our return from. So yeah, that's great. And yeah, let's just put all of these in some try catch so we can handle the errors. The return it on the left. Yes. Then here we are just going to yeah, now we have just fixed our error. Then we can continue. So here we are loading all the trips we just have had previously, and then in our ads, let's just make sure that we didn't miss anything in your add trip file. It looked like pretty clear. So if you want just to change your UI, yeah, you can, and yeah, add something. So when you just add new trip, we directly load it, and it will directly call our like main trip. So you can are going to just watch it and make an update on our main screen. So yeah, let's just add new component. I have some widgets here. Let's create like, let's call it custom. We are going to call it like custom search bar if you want, and we also have our travel card. Stop that. This travel card, I got already a code for that, so it is just like basically some, yeah, so it will display the description if you have one. And yeah, we are just going to use this travel card directly in our main. So let's just move on our, and we are going to replace this oh yeah, we just forgot to add our custom search bar too. Let's just import it, of course, and so yeah, now we got our app. If we want, here we just add on delete function, so it is almost the same. We call the function remove trip, and we can delete all the trip you want and years. So if I want to delete all of them, so if I want to add new one, I can just add it. And yeah, let's just remove some unnecessary print we make before, and we are going, yeah, to make sure everything is good. In our main app, we are just going to add some action, and yeah, here is go. Let's just add some action, but we need to initialize some string here. So I will choose picture online. So yeah, now we have done. We can decide to change the image. If you want to change the image URL, you can just change as you want. And here, now we got our clean architecture with Riverpod. And for this, I hope that you understand a bit how you can use Riverpod with clean architecture. If you have questions, feel free to join us in the Telegram group, and I will let you the last part, like this one with maps. And if you want to contribute to our GitHub, you can just like pull the project, add by using, for example, Google Flutter maps, and yeah, set location on maps, and then try to push it. We are going to make a review and if your code is great, we are going just to accept it in our GitHub. I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. If you have questions or if you want us to working on another topics, feel free to tell us. And yeah, see you. Thanks.